Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Opportunity Project for Cities Demo Day 2022. We are so honored that you've decided to spend your afternoon with us. The 4 Opportunity Project for Cities participants, Detroit, Long Beach, Macon-Bibb County, and Miami-Dade County, have done incredible work over the past 22 weeks, so you are all in for a treat today. Before we begin, my name is Kate Stenslick, and I am a program manager at the Center for Public Impact, overseeing this program alongside Rebecca Ayarardo and Katia Abasajian from the Beck Center at Georgetown University. I'll be emceeing today's event. We also want to extend a special welcome to our keynote speaker, Raylene Young from the Technology Modernization Fund, who will be providing personal remarks today, our speaker from the Knight Foundation, Kelly Jin, and our speaker from Google, Gabriel Doss. The Opportunity Project for Cities is supported by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, with pro bono technical support from google.org. We are so honored to work with both of you and really appreciate everything you have done to help make this cohort a success. Lastly, I do see that we have some folks here from the Census Bureau in the audience. Thank you so much for joining us today and for being such an inspiration for the start of all of this work. And now we're going to jump into our agenda for today. So we're going to start off with some quick introductions from the Center for Public Impact, the Beck Center, and google.org. We will then hear from Raylene Young, who will share a keynote address. Following the keynote address, we will provide a brief overview of this program and then launch into our team's demos, the moment that you've all been waiting for. At the conclusion of the team demos, Kelly Jin from the Knight Foundation will offer a closing reflection, and we will also share a few updates on things that are coming down the road from the Opportunity Project for Cities. So you have a sense of who's who throughout the day. We wanted to introduce you to the organizations behind the program. The Center for Public Impact, or CPI, and the Beck Center for Social Impact and Innovation at Georgetown University work together to bring this program to life. CPI is a nonprofit organization founded by BCG with a vision to reimagine government so that it works for everyone. We act as a learning partner for governments and public servants to drive meaningful change through learning and experimentation. Our partner, the Beck Center, brings together experts, students, and practitioner networks to work on projects that solve societal challenges using data, design, and technology. You'll hear from the Beck Fellow Katia later on today. I do want to give a special shout out to our coaches before we keep going: Brian Zuluaga, Grayson Wiles, Matt Collins, Rebecca Ayarardo, Brian McGough, Joshua Walton, Osborne Brown, and our product advisor, Harold Moore, who really served as the backbone of this program. I'm now going to pass it over to Gabriel Doss from google.org for a few remarks. Welcome, Gabriel.
Thank you, Kate. It's a pleasure to be joining you all today. My name is Gabe Doss, and I lead skill-based volunteering and fellowships at google.org. Google.org's mission is to bring the best of Google to help solve some of humanity's biggest challenges. And we do that by combining funding, innovation, and technical expertise to support underserved communities and to provide opportunity for everyone. We hear from our grantees and from civic entities that they can solve challenges more effectively by pairing their knowledge of the communities that they work in with technical experts. And so that's why google.org creates part-time and full-time pro bono support opportunities that allow Googlers to give back to the local communities that they come from and share their technical know-how. With our Civic Fellowships program, we hone in on supporting cities and states to improve access to social services and benefits, which we know is needed now more than ever. And so in this shining example of public-private partnership, we've had about 50 pro bono Google volunteers who have served as a tech team across the 4 cities that we will hear from today. And they've worked to develop technical solutions to solve tough challenges that these cities are facing. Over the past 22 weeks, they've come at these solutions through design sprints, user interviews, prototyping, and tons of product visioning together to make this work as successful and sustainable for these cities as possible. We were honored to work with the city of Macon-Bibb, the city of Long Beach, the city of Miami-Dade, and the city of Detroit. And this is a multi-year partnership. And so we were really fortunate to have our Googlers benefit from the lessons learned with the top city initiatives in St. Paul and San Jose. We are delighted to see the Top Cities program expand to 4 cities this year. Lastly, as a resident of Detroit and for the program lead with the Google.org Fellowship with the city of Detroit in 2021, we see this as a really a shining example of our ability to go deep in cities, and particularly to develop solutions that are user-centered and are driven by challenges that have been brought to us by their local community. And so I've been tracking the effort across all 4 of these projects. I'm very excited to see what you all have to share with us today. I want to extend a special thank you to the cities and counties and community partners for this dynamic collaboration with our pro bono Googlers to build community-driven solutions. It was an education for us as well. So a sincere thanks there. Also, a huge thank you to CPI, to Beck, and to the Knight Foundation for being outstanding partners in this journey and for allowing Google.org to be a part of it. Thanks so much. I'll pass it back to you, Kate.
Thank you. I'm now going to pass it to Katya Abazajian, who will introduce our speaker.
Great. Thanks so much, Kate. And thank you so much, Gabriel, for reiterating your support. You guys, both of you have been such really essential partners in this work. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Katya Abazajian. I'm a fellow at the Beck Center, and I've been supporting the Opportunity Project for Cities from our side. I've been really proud to collaborate with the Center for Public Impact to support this project and help connect sprint teams to practitioner expertise on data design and technology through the Beck Center. As a fellow, I've seen firsthand that it takes bold, passionate, and innovative teams to make technology work to solve local challenges. No one knows this better than Raylene Young. As the co-founder of the U.S. Digital Response, Raylene helped digital experts and technologists work with over 230 government and nonprofit organizations on over 300 projects. Now, Raylene oversees the U.S. General Service Administration's Tech Modernization Fund, an innovative investment program that aims to reimagine, transform, and modernize the way the federal government uses technology. At the Beck Center, we understand the importance of investing in big ideas to ensure that our public systems work for everyone. And I'm very excited to pass the mic now to Raylene to talk more about her experience and share some words of wisdom about tech modernization in government to the sprint teams and to our broader networks around the Opportunity Project for Cities. Thanks, and passing it off to you, Raylene.
Thank you so much, Katya, for the introduction and for everyone for having me here today. I'm just so excited to be here to speak to this audience. I feel like this group is really special to me personally. It represents that intersection of technology and local community leaders, public servants, and kind of all meeting together to have impact in the real world. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what I see as like the value of technology in this really unique space that we sometimes refer to as civic tech or government technology or public interest technology, which I really think is a new frontier in tech and product development. So just through a little bit of background on me, I come from in some ways, very traditional software engineering tech background. I spent most of my career in Silicon Valley, working and building on large scale software systems and working on products that kind of reached, maybe every one of us in some way. But a few years ago, I kind of took a turn and really dedicated myself to working on that intersection of technology and the public sector and government. So a few years ago, I started an organization and co-founded it with a group of incredible people called U.S. Digital Response. So as Katya mentioned, that organization has worked with hundreds of government partners at state, local, city, county, and territorial levels, and really gave me that kind of firsthand experience of what it was like to see how tech products and tools actually worked in the real world, especially in government. Fast forwarding a little bit, and today I'm the executive director of the Technology Modernization Fund, which is a program that is administered in the federal government at the General Services Administration. And what it is it is really an investment program. So it looks at investing money in federal agencies, helping them transform and modernize their IT systems, and really, in the end, just aiming to help serve the public more effectively with simple, seamless, and secure digital services. So that's a little bit of the background, and just kind of to dive in. So given that experience, kind of coming from Silicon Valley, working at startups, working with local governments, and now in the federal government, I thought a lot about like, how is technology really different between the private and public sectors? So I'm going to go through a few different ways that I think hopefully will resonate with many of you here. But really what I think get at here is it's not just how technology is different in the private or public sectors, but it's what makes that public sector technology really, really special and impactful. So the first thing is, often talk about growth and scaling. So here's an example of a famous private sector company, Netflix, where you kind of have that storied growth curve of up and to the right. And you see every year, basically since it's been created, more users have come on the system. It's grown, it's grown, it's grown. And I think you could pick any number of public software companies or successful products, and they may have similar growth curves to that. But on the right, I always joke that when you think of like a government user base, you're really thinking about the people that live there. And on the right is the growth of California's population growth rate. I would argue it's a very popular product, the state of California. Lots of people like to live there and think highly of it, but the growth curves and the way that the user base sort of changes is very different in the public sector. Kind of going to the next slide. What really changed, though, during the pandemic was that government systems kind of saw these massive changes in scale and demand that I think really pushed government systems to the limit. So I think this is a great example of unemployment insurance benefits, where for 50 years, essentially, it had followed that more stable curve. Every year, maybe there's a little bit of fluctuation here and there, but all of a sudden in 2020, you had this huge spike in demand. So I just wanted to show the contrast in many ways. If you have been developing systems with that left side of the growth curve, you may be making different choices and kind of different assumptions than you do if you're working in the right side of the curve and you're kind of used to that dynamism in different systems. I think this represents an opportunity for government to kind of learn how to be more responsive and flexible to changing demand. Brings me to my next point, stability. The flip side of government and the private sector, of the fact that it's always changing, is it is always changing. It's always evolving. And often the code that is powering today's product that you're using might be entirely different than what was being used 5 years ago, let alone 10, 20, 30 years ago. But in government, systems are highly, highly stable. I think you may have seen the headlines during the pandemic as well, related to unemployment insurance, around programs still being administered using decades-old COBOL mainframe systems. I think there was a lot of negative press around that and just how hard it is to maintain these old systems. And I think it's incredibly important that we modernize and make more responsive systems. But the point I also wanted to make is that that's pretty hard to have these systems operate for such a long period of time and to always continue to deliver the services along the way. And I think government actually has that unique challenge, and in many ways has prioritized that idea of stability and reliability. And then the next piece is thinking a little bit about inclusivity and accessibility. I used to, it was kind of funny in retrospect now, but I remember if I put my old industry hat on, many years ago, I remember being in a conference room or a product review, and we were talking about the diversity of our user base, right? And at the time, a big aspect was, are they an Android user or an iOS user? And I think back on that now, and it's just kind of funny to think about the space of users and what inclusivity and accessibility means if you take a very tech industry, private sector heavy lens, when you then contrast that to the public sector. So in government, when you're serving different users, the wide range of users is so much more vast. So it's not just people who have one type of phone or another, it's people who have phones or don't have any phones, or don't even have any internet access accessible to them on a regular basis. So this is a photo of library terminals where many people in this country actually go to access services that they need. I think another example is obviously the types of people. You have people who speak different languages, who have different disabilities, different ability and tech proficiency. So a great example of a project that a team at USTR did a couple years ago was they realized that, you know, the audience for the tool was older, maybe not as tech savvy, had trouble signing up for things online. So they added a feature where a delegate or a family member could actually sign up on behalf of the recipient of those services. So I just want to say that I think in many ways, the public sector is more advanced when it thinks about inclusivity and accessibility, and it pushes product development and technology to be more inclusive because it has to be, and it really has to serve everyone. Moving to the next point, policy. I think you often hear a lot about the impact of policy on technology in the public sector, but truly technology is deeply, deeply rooted in policy in many different ways. And this affects not only, you know, maybe the rules and regulations that governs a way a program is administered. So who might be eligible for something? What are the different information fields that you have to collect? But there's also a lot of policy that governs kind of the how around technology. So this is a great example. It's something called the Paperwork Reduction Act. It applies to federal agencies, but what's interesting is it's topic agnostic. It has nothing to do with the specific program or even the subject, but instead it governs how federal agencies actually collect information from real people. It involves, you know, what is the information you're collecting? How are you collecting it? Who are you collecting it from? And what are you using it for? And I think this kind of just kind of roots like, or kind of explains why, you know, there's a lot more nuance in a lot of ways around the policies of technology in the public sector, not just what you're doing, but how you're doing it. Another great example on the next slide is more of that program example. So just kind of using unemployment insurance again, it's a complex program. And this is a page from the US Department of Labor, the federal agency, but it talks about eligibility and the fact that, you know, eligibility actually is set with different rules based on states. And the same might be true for different programs and different services where there are rules maybe at the county level or the city level and different ways that and people are expected to kind of understand these different requirements. So I think it adds this sort of really rich kind of tapestry of different rules and policies that underlie all the technical programs and services that are built for government or in government. Kind of brings me to my next point, further kind of elaborating the idea that I think public sector tech is just really interesting. It's a lot more multifaceted. Here's an example of a where we think of technical systems when you can use that phrase, but I think in public sector, these are human systems, not just technical ones. So here's a somewhat complicated graphic, but what I was trying to show was an example, another great case study from US Digital Response around helping families stay in their homes in Memphis, Shelby County, using the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. So you have this kind of diagram of how everything works in the background. But the thing I wanted to draw attention to was the idea of all the different people that actually interact with this system. So sure, you might have an online web form or a database or all these different technical tools, but in some ways, the most important piece is the fact that you have all of these different types of people interacting with the systems. So it's probably a little hard to read, but in the little journey map, you have the applicants, you have the landlords, you have the actual members of the different community organizations like lawyers and caseworkers that actually help people apply and get these benefits. And there's so many different organizations involved too. So these were just some of the nonprofits and different local organizations that collaborated in order to make this program kind of really work for people in Memphis. So just to kind of talk a little bit more about to further expand this point that technology is far more than just systems and tools, I also think technology is really actually a mindset. It's an approach. It's a way of seeing different problems. I always say that technology is not just about the tools. It's about what tools do you even need? What's the problem that's trying to be solved? How do you break down a problem? How do you design solutions? Here's a great example I also love from that same work in Memphis. From a local partner who, you know, was non-technical, was a community involved and the director of a nonprofit and a lawyer. But something that I love about this quote was the interaction with USTR, but really the interaction with modern technology and delivery was learning to solve problems they didn't even know they had. It was about that mindset. It was about that approach. And I think another attribute of technology that's so different is it's a mindset of continuous improvement. So you may try something, you're going to learn, you're going to add different components of the system, but it's getting stronger and more efficient the kind of more you break it down and the more you work to improve it. to go to the next quote, just another, just to talk a little bit about my current role. Robin Carnahan, who's which I realized I didn't put her full name on here, but is the administrator of the General Services Administration where I work now, and has this kind of great quote and focus for us around, how can you have a future where people can access programs as easily as they can order a pair of shoes. And one of her, trademark slogans is making the damn websites work. I would go a little further to say this, though. I think it's actually not just about making technology, as good as what happens in the consumer world or ordering your pair of shoes online, but it's actually about how do you make technology and services even better. So more inclusive, more accessible, deeply integrated into policy and programs in a way that just we don't even see, I would say, in the private sector. So on that note, I want to kind of talk a little bit about just what the impact can be. I think actually a few of the examples I showed earlier already demonstrate that huge tangible impact. And here's just a fun example from the Technology Modernization Fund of a somewhat recent investment in the Department of Agriculture, where it's kind of, they have this division called the Specialty Crops Inspection Division, where previously you had people walking around on clipboards inspecting produce to ensure that it's safe to eat and it's kind of compliant and up to regulation. And they would walk around with these clipboards inspecting food. They would go back to their office. They would manually input the data they've collected on their clipboards and kind of enter this process to inspect food. With the investment from the TMF, that whole thing got automated, right? So it turned into an online process. Everything could happen seamlessly in the field and improve the safety and speed of all of these different steps. But in the end, it also helped people inspect over 60 billion tons of fruits and vegetables that kind of make it into our homes and in school lunches and all of so many different important things. So I just want to give an example that I think the work you're doing, and I'm sure you're feeling this already, it's so tangible. It really is affecting real workflows and people and everyday lives. So just in closing, thank you again for the time. But one thing I'll just say that I hope you're all feeling from your work, and I'm excited to see in the demos you're going to share. I really believe that all the technology that we need to effectively deliver public services already exists today. The problem is not an invention of new technology. What matters most to us now is how do we choose to use technology? What are the problems we're choosing to work on? Who are the people that we choose to work with and work for? And what are those end users that we are really working to build a better life for? Thank you so much. And again, thanks for all the great work you're doing.
Raylene, thank you for such thoughtful and insightful remarks. It's just been such an honor to have you join us today and learn from your experiences. In a moment, I'm going to hand it over to our first Sprint team presenters. But before that, I did want to share a little bit about how this program works and why it matters. So the Opportunity Project for Cities, also called TOPC for short, brings together government leaders, community partners, and Google.org volunteers to address local challenges using open data and community engagement. During the program, teams engage in a design sprint, which involves, during phase 1, community research with residents to better understand a local problem. In phase 2, they develop a prototype or a digital tool that addresses the problem and test it with residents for feedback. And then in the third phase, they pilot the tool with continued plans for development and resident feedback over time. Longer term, we hope that all of this work amounts to building a culture of government transparency, responsiveness, and accessibility that strengthens trust with residents, increases resident voice in governance, and leads to lasting digital governance tools. Throughout the program, teams build skills in a couple of different ways. First and foremost, the program moves beyond simply engaging the community in the problem solving, and it places them as partners and leaders in every stage of the sprint. Our community partner plays a critical role in making sure resident voices are heard and valued throughout this work. Second, the program moves away from a traditional government consultant type of collaboration and brings together government, community, and private sector actors as equal partners to do this work. Lastly, our teams learn from the Google engineers about how to leverage open data and open source code to adapt custom tools to their community's needs and keep those tools alive over time. So I realize that was a very brief overview of the program. We have tons of resources online if you want to learn more, but I do want to make sure that we get into our demos for today. So we are going to start off with Team Detroit, followed by Long Beach, then Macon-Bibb, and Miami-Dade. Audience members, you are welcome to put questions in the chat during the demos. After each demo, we will have some time for Q&A for each team, so we'd love to see those there. And with that, I'm going to intro our first city, Detroit. Detroit, Michigan has worked with, or the city of Detroit has worked with Hope Village Revitalization during the sprint. I'm now going to turn it over to Oscar Chapa from the city of Detroit. Welcome, Oscar.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Nice seeing you guys on Zoom for all those cameras on, or I guess I only see the panelists, not everyone else, but thank you all for joining us. And I'm excited to show you guys what we've come up with over the last 22 weeks. I'm thinking you guys have my slides, correct? Or should I be sharing my screen?
One second, Oscar. I'm pulling it up for you right now.
All right. I'm ready. No. All right, everyone. So I get to go on slide 2. First, I want to start off by saying thank you to all the wonderful people who have been part of these last 22 weeks from google.org. Thank you for all the technical support and being able to provide us with information about how to store data, how to best create forms. Center for Public Impact. I would not be here if it was not for Rebecca's constant emails about having to turn things in on time. So I really appreciate her keeping us on track and doing what we had to do. Harold from the Beck Center, awesome work, man. You really helped me with the hardware piece of all of this that you guys are going to learn about in a bit. And then City of Detroit team, the open data portal team, they've been super helpful with all of this. And Debbie from Hope Village Revitalizations, which served as our community partner to really get into what the community needed and what solution would really work for our city. Next slide. And of course, with all of that, we knew that none of the partners, not that we are not individually anything, but we're nothing without community. So as a representative of the city of Detroit, I wanted to make sure that we had community input. And, you know, the more that we got into the community and what kind of tool we wanted developed, there was one story that kept coming up to us. And it was this story about this one resident named Jeffrey Jones who lived in the Hope Village neighborhood. Jeffrey Jones and his neighbors went through the pandemic in 2021, 45 days without having internet. I could not be doing this presentation if I did not have internet. I could not be working from home. I could not do telehealth. I could not watch my favorite Netflix show without internet. So now imagine being isolated during the pandemic, having nowhere to go and not having internet. And then the worst part is that the city had no idea that this was happening. The more investigation we started doing, we saw that internet service providers were providing horrible quality service, and there was no way for us to keep track of that. Want to go on to the next slide? So we had to put our heads together, all the partners, all the community people, and we were doing sticky notes. I'm sure all of you are welcome to this virtual world and the mural boards. We went from big ideas. You know, one of my favorite ideas was this big red button idea. So they were like, imagine if you just put a red button and we could solve an issue and fix people's internet connectivity. Obviously, we didn't have enough time to develop that wonderful solution, but we wanted to make sure that whatever solution we came up with was just that easy. That didn't put the resident in any predicament where they had to fill out crazy forms or anything that consumed too much of their time. So we put all our heads together, and on this slide, I want to pass it on to our UX designer, Amalika, with Google, to just kind of talk to you guys more about how that process went.
Thanks, Oscar. I can go to the next slide. So the UX team at Google, we conducted research throughout the sprint and the ideation process. And the key goal of the research was to understand residents' current situation, for example, how they report outages today and their access to technology, learn what residents need to know about outage status when they are experiencing an outage, and then understand the impact that outages have on the residents' quality of life. The next slide. So there's a couple different ways that we did that. So these are the research methods that we used. To start, we audited existing information, like the reporting process for the Federal Communications Commission, which is a resource that residents can reach out to when they're experiencing internet issues. And then other apps that allow you to report internet issues, other kinds of issues, just to look at those for inspiration. We also conducted a resident survey with questions about residents' experiences with outages, as well as in-depth 30-minute interviews, again, directly with residents. And then finally, we ran usability testing to gather feedback on our final product. So throughout the research, we heard directly from residents about the impact that outages had on their lives. As an example, one resident told us that when they experienced their outage, their grandchildren couldn't complete their after-school work, and they had to travel to a different location for them to get their schoolwork done. So using Miro and other remote tools, as a team, we synthesized all of the learnings from the research to come up with our sprint problem statement, which was how might we collect internet performance data from residents in the easiest way and display that data so residents have more transparency around provider performance. I'll hand it back to you, Oscar.
I was talking, but I was not unmuted. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about why knowing where these outages are so important, right? And why as a city, we want to know this. As we do infrastructure investments and we go into community, or when we go into communities, we want to go into the most underserved communities first, right? So this internet quality tracker is going to help us do that. As you can see, it's kind of playing on the screen, but a resident can go, it's going to be a link on our website. They can go and answer questions like, hey, are you experiencing this issue right now? Or did you experience it last week and you just want to report it? And what the city is going to do with this data is we're going to be able to see where outages are happening in the community, if there's spikes in outages in certain places, and then we can go out into the community and test these networks. Can you go on to the next slide? This data is also going to be visualized on our open data portal. So we wanted to be really transparent where outages were happening in the community so that we can get a better understanding of what some of the infrastructure issues are that are happening. These are some of our examples that we came up with about how that data visualization could work. As you can see, it kind of just makes it easier for the user to find what block they're in, and hopefully it's by neighborhood. And eventually it would like say things such as pricing and the speeds that people are receiving. If you want to go on to the next slide. So we know, as I just said, that those were just some samples that we were working on. We know that whatever solution that we come up with, it's going to go through various iterations. It's not done here, and we're moving forward. And as we move forward, if you want to go on the next slide. This is what I'm really, really excited about because the TOPC project was the perfect baseline for us to do some hardware installations in people's homes that are experiencing some outages. So while we were talking to Rebecca and the Google folks, our original idea was actually to do a hardware piece. We wanted to do something automated, something that was easy for residents, something that they could just plug in and it would give us data. At first, with all the Pi shortages or the chip shortages, we thought, you know, that might not actually be able to happen. But Rebecca got some courage into me, and I started reaching out to other partners, and I got to the University of Chicago, and luckily they had 10 devices just sitting around, and they actually are sending us to those this week, and we're going to be installing them in residents' homes to test our fiber installation. So in the Hope Village neighborhood, the 45-day outage neighborhood where Jeffrey Jones lives, the city is actually investing $10 million to do an open access network. And what that means is that infrastructure issue is going to be fixed. And with these devices, we're going to be able to prove that infrastructure update works. That $10 million comes from ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. And it's the Office of Digital Inclusion's full intention to go into the most underserved communities first and ensure that those funds are maximized moving forward. So with that big hoorah and that big announcement, I kind of just want to go to the next slide and thank all the beautiful faces that were part of this project. I made friends over the last 22 weeks, plenty of LinkedIn connections, and I'm excited to see you all at conferences and to hear what the next stage of your guys' lives are. And thank you so much. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. This is fantastic and so exciting to hear what y'all have been working on. We're going to open it up for questions for Oscar and for Malika. So if I can have them join me back here. One of the questions I received in the chat was, what does success look like for you guys? So that is from Art to the team. What does success look like?
Ultimately, success as a city looks like that every resident has access to affordable quality internet, and emphasis on affordable. So when we were doing some of our, we did some consulting work with a company that went out to community to survey them. The biggest hurdle was the affordability. With this open access fiber network that we're installing in Hope Village, we hope to drive the price down to zero for residents. And that's part of all of this project, right? Because we need to know where the gaps lie, and then be able to go into those communities and really invest and provide that affordable quality internet for everyone. And then I see internet service providers. They're not the most happy people in the world. Maybe not because of this specific tool, right? But when we were trying to reach out to them just to even provide data about internet performance, they were very reluctant to giving us that information. And as far as the open access network, you know, we're encouraging all internet service providers that want to participate to be on that network. So yeah, it's a win-win for all.
That's great. And then I received a message with another chat. So your solution is highly dependent on your partnership and trust with residents. How have you been thinking about building that trust?
So the Hope Village Revitalization, Debbie is the expert in all of this. We'll continue to working with her in that specific area. But as we branch out to other communities, we are reaching out to the Department of Neighborhoods that the city has, and also other district council offices and things like that, so that we can really pinpoint communities and like people in those communities. And I make it a point that before I go anywhere, I'm like, hey, I don't want to say anything. I just want to observe and have people see me a couple times before I even talk, because I mean, there is that when you go into the communities, you need to build trust. And I'm fully aware of that.
That's awesome. I have one final question that I'll take, and then we'll move on to the next team's presentation. So Long Beach, you're going to be on deck soon. But the final question is, what was the key or most surprising insight that you gained from your work in developing the solution? And I'd actually love to hear from both of you on this one. So based on community research, whatever it may be, let's go for it.
I'll let you go first, Malika.
That's surprising. I think this is definitely not a linear process. I think we thought we were going to pursue one idea, and then we learned something else. We pivoted a bunch of times, circumstances changed. So staying nimble and staying focused on helping users at the end of the day, or residents, I think kept us grounded. But I wasn't, that was surprising a little bit, just the amount of change we had to face.
And I think what was most surprising for me is that I knew it was a problem, right? But I didn't expect that every single resident that we interviewed or that we recruited would say, hey, this is a huge problem and I'm having quality issues and I'm paying ridiculous amounts of money for it. Like, it was just crazy to me how widespread it was. Like, I knew it was an issue, but I didn't think it was that big of an issue.
Fantastic. Well, I think there are going to be a lot of eyes on Detroit hoping to learn more about this. I can see a lot of cities and other communities being able to benefit from this. But thank you so much, Oscar. Thank you, Malika. We're so excited to hear how this tool is applied in the coming months. And what further insights you gain as this is implemented. So next up, we're going to go into Long Beach, California. During the sprint, Long Beach partnered with Puente Latino Association and the Nayam Neighborhood Association. They will be starting out with a video first, and then they'll move into a product demo. When we moved into Q&A, we'll get questions answered by Vanessa Covington, Larry Rich, Nichelle Chowdhury, Hilda Gaitan, and Chris Reynolds. So that will be after the video and the presentation, but we'll move to video now and get a chance to see their tool.
Trees. They're an essential part of the environment and its ecosystems. Through photosynthesis, trees absorb carbon dioxide from the air and release oxygen. Trees are the basis for sustaining life on Earth, so it's imperative that we grow, water, and nurture them. This is the story of how Long Beach is doing just that. As you can see, Long Beach suffers from a scarcity of urban tree cover, resulting in more polluted air for the residents living in this city. But the air and noise pollution from trucks and ships traveling through Long Beach every day inspire community members like Tony Bell from Westside Elevate to fight for cleaner air and more greenery on the west side of Long Beach.
Hi, my name is Tony Bell with Westside Elevate. And we are so excited about this new app because we live in Westside Long Beach. Here, we have major sources of pollution surrounding us, with one of the busiest ports in the nation, oil refineries, multiple rail yards, 2 major freeways, chemical facilities, and the 3rd largest oil field in the contiguous US being not far from us, which is why the Westside has been dubbed the corridor of death. However, we are doing our parts to counteract the effects of pollution by planting trees and greening the West Side. Working together, we are able to take care of the trees that are here because we realize that they are vital to the health and wellness of our residents since they remove pollution from the air and they exchange it with clean oxygen. We are so grateful for this app. It allows us to have the latest available data on each tree that is located here on the West Side. It allows residents to collaboratively ensure that each tree is receiving the special care that it needs. The data gives us the ability to know which trees are struggling, so we can give those trees the extra attention that they need. As Long Beach residents, we take pride in living in one of the greatest cities in America due to our diversity and our willingness to work together. That's also part of what makes this app so great, because as we work together using the app, we know that more trees will thrive, pollution will decrease, and the people of Westside Long Beach will live longer, happier lives as a result.
Now, let's hear from Vanessa Covington from the Long Beach Office of Sustainability and a longtime resident of Central Long Beach about this project and why it matters to her.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Covington, and I work with the Long Beach Office of Sustainability. I have lived in Central Long Beach since I was in primary school. Central Long Beach has been environmentally and systemically disenfranchised for decades. That can be seen in our neighborhoods that have 1 or 2 trees, if that, over 20 years old. Building my relationship with nature in my community has helped my mental well-being. My work with the Long Beach Office of Sustainability has helped me gain a greater sense of community with those parts of Long Beach that face similar issues like my neighborhood. I was able to foster a relationship with community nonprofits and other city departments during this project to work toward the common goal of combating the urban heat island effect. I hope that this tool can help bring communities together to work toward the common goal of having a healthier community for all. This tool will be offered in 4 different languages so that it can be accessed by different parts of our community.
Now we have heard from Vanessa in Central Long Beach. Let's move to North Long Beach to hear from Hilda Gaitan from the Puente Latino Association about the impact that the Long Beach tree map will have in her area.
Hola, mi nombre es Hilda Gaitán y estoy aquí en North Long Beach. North Long Beach is one of the most densely populated areas and have access to the least park, open spaces, and tree coverage. We are located between 2 freeways, so our air pollution is amongst the worst in the state. That is why Our young community needs robust tree coverage to mitigate the effects of pollution, which is one of the reasons for a 9-year shorter life expectancy than other parts of Long Beach. There has been an increase in neighborhood tree planting efforts in North Long Beach. Unfortunately, many of these trees died due to the lack of proper maintenance. This tool will monitor tree health, and it will help us to find volunteers and tree caregivers to ensure the tree survival. Also, having an accurate account of our trees will make this the perfect tool to advocate for resources. Definitely, adding this tool to the existing tree planting efforts will positively change the future of our community.
This Long Beach Tree Map project is a project for the community by the community. Now over to Nish Chaudhry, the City of Long Beach Information Systems Officer of the Innovation and Technology Department and a resident of Long Beach, to explain the deep community partnerships that allowed this project to grow to its current state.
City of Long Beach's Technology and Innovation Department partnered with our Office of Sustainability so that we can understand the gap through data. We partner with community organizations and the Google Fellows under the Center for Public Impact's Opportunity Project for Cities so that we can understand the gap through data and then address urban greening in City of Long Beach.
Moving back over to Vanessa to share how this project will empower Long Beach residents.
Having this data will help communities advocate for cleaner air and more cooling spaces in their neighborhoods during heat waves. Transforming the area you live in with trees helps give you a greater sense of ownership of your neighborhood. The City of Long Beach will work with community nonprofits in order to implement this tool in different parts of Long Beach.
You can now visit longbeachtreedata.org to view the Long Beach Tree Map. This is an interactive tree mapping tool that uses existing tree data to map out locations for future sites where trees could be planted and maintained via educational engagement and tree planting events. You can also submit your own private trees to the Long Beach Tree Map and use the resources on this website to learn more about ways to sustain the growth of trees in your own backyard. Together, we can make Long Beach greener and cleaner for all.
Thank you. And now Chris Reynolds is going to take us through a live demo of the tool. Welcome, Chris.
Hello. All right, let me share this. Okay, so this is our map that we created. It's actually a full-fledged website, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I'll showcase the map. So we're still working through some tree optimization issues on the map. We have currently about 93,000 public trees and 50-ish thousand vacant lots across the map. And this does not include any private trees on the map. Well, actually, there's one private tree. That's mine. But this map, it takes a long time to render. And so we're working through optimization issues to make it so it's super smooth when we load it up. And so when we get it end up working properly, what will end up happening is you'll load up a map and then you'll see clusters like this. And similar to like Zillow and all the other map platforms, you can zoom in and see the clusters change based off of density. You keep zooming in enough, and it'll showcase what the public tree layout looks like. And give it a second here. Okay, well, while that loads, there we go. You can see how densely populated it is. Again, keep in mind, you can see that they're all within the streets. They're not in any private property. Again, these are all public trees. The green dots represent the trees. The blue dots represent potential sites where trees could be planted. And in this map itself, what you can actually do, and I'll swap over to the other one here. If we look at a neighborhood, for example, you can click on a tree and it'll open up a tooltip. It'll tell you that it's a public tree. It'll show you what species it is, the common name, the neighborhood that it's located, the current address of that tree, and a few other information. One of the things that we thought was really important to this project was not only visually seeing all the trees on the map, but also making it so you can actually have an impact and make a difference to the actual tree. And so you can notice on this map that most of these are green, but a few of them are red. So let's take this red one, for example. This red one has been flagged as it needs help. And by help, it could mean, oh, this tree needs to be watered. This tree needs tree maintenance. This tree is dead. So let's say that someone notices that this tree in particular needs to be attended to. You can click the link in this tooltip and it pops up a specific URL for that specific tree number. And then you can filter out and submit a form to the administration team. They can go in and then verify that that tree does need help and then attend to that tree. Similarly, we'll go back to this one. We added some filtering on the side. I think I'll have to load this one up again. Well, while that one loads, and I'll show you guys the filtering in a minute, we added some metrics. So currently, again, we have 93,134 public trees, the most common tree, and then the actual count of these trees. And so we have 6,800 of these jacaranda trees, and that equates to about 7.3% of the total tree coverage across the city of Long Beach. And then we also included neighborhood data. And so basically, these are all 80-ish neighborhoods in the city of Long Beach. And this bar chart is essentially trying to represent a visual impact, because it's hard to see on the map how the tree inequity is across the entire spectrum of Long Beach. There's just too many dots to show. So on a map form, you can see the neighborhoods and how there's a significant drop between, say, Bixby Knolls and down here, some of these other neighborhoods. And so we want to address them and give leverage and priority to planting trees in these specific neighborhoods by use through the data. Let me show some filtering here. So one of the things that we can do is you can also filter by neighborhood. So again, right now we're working through some of our filtering optimizations. So it's not showing all the trees on the map, but if I say wanted to type in, let's go to that Bixby Knolls. Fine. So you click on Bixby and it should load up the trees. No, let's click on, I think because I refreshed, there we go. So then it opens up that specific area of trees. And so you can go in and really hone in specifically on those trees. And then if you want to filter the specific type of tree in this area, let's just go to the jacaranda tree, for example. You can actually see where the jacaranda trees are located across the map. And so you can really hone in on specific areas of data that you want to focus on. Similarly, we can also showcase the vacant sites. And this might take a moment. Oh, there we go. That's pretty quick. So you can see this is all the vacant sites in this specific Bluff Park neighborhood where trees have been denoted to be able to be planted from a public sense. And that just gives another area of sort of leverage of we can plant trees in this location. On the information tab up here, you can also click on submit a tree. So you go to submit a tree, and I have it open already. You can actually go and submit your public tree, a public tree that if it doesn't exist, or a private tree, say in your front yard if you wanted to. And it will go through and it'll ask you specific questions associated with adding a tree to the database. So such as adding the latitude and longitude or the location, the address of the tree, what type of tree it is, things like that. That'll also go into a spreadsheet that then some administration folk can add the tree to the data set, and then it will populate on the map. And then I'll go over real quick to the benefits. So there's a really cool program called iTree. It's effectively a tree analysis that most of the country uses to basically, you can upload a tree data set that you have, and it'll spit out a sort of benefits, tabulated benefits of all the trees that you own. And so across the city of Long Beach, we have about $1.5 million in total benefits of trees. Maybe you can read through all these. It's pretty neat because you can actually, and it's dynamic. So if more trees are added, then this changes. And you can see how much of an impact trees actually have from like an actual monetary value. And then the last thing that we have here to add, and I'll just showcase this real quick, is calendar. Currently, we don't have anything on the calendar, but the way this would work is, say some community organization wants to come in and add a tree planting event in the future. They can go and submit a calendar event. So they click that link, and then it opens up a Google form that they type in, hey, this is the name of the event, this is the date, this is who's putting it on, things like that. And they click submit, and it goes to, again, the same administration database where an administrator can approve it and then add it to the calendar to essentially give a lot more visibility into what is available from a community standpoint. And with that, I think that is what we have. Oh, actually, I want to touch real quick on this. It was alluded to in the video that we have 4 languages. We're currently working on a 5th, but right now, English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Tagalog. And we're currently adding Khmer. So we're having we have these bigger communities within the area, and we want to make sure that we can, it can be utilized by all these communities where, English may not be a second or even third language. And so adding these languages, if you go up here and you can click on it, what it does is it changes all of our text to that specific language, just so it gives a little more visibility and use for languages. One thing, a feature that we're going to add in the future here that we're working on is changing the base map. And so when they do change the language, it also changes the base map, such as Hawaiian Gardens, that'll change to be in Vietnamese. A few more things that we're looking at adding in the future is mobile compatibility. Right now, what we have this is mostly desktop. Not saying that you can't use it on your phone or your iPad, just it won't show up in proper format yet, but that's something we can pretty easily do. So we will tackle that next. And then the next thing I think that's really important that a lot of people don't have access to really finding out, geo coordinates for their tree they want to plant or trees they have planted. And so in our script, we want to have if someone wants to upload a tree, it'll actually geocode in the script itself. So it'll get the latitude and longitude and then spit it out into the spreadsheet. So it'll automatically populate. And with that, I think we'll open up for questions.
Great. Well, amazing job, Long Beach. So exciting to see what y'all have been doing there with the urban greening. We have a ton of questions in the chat, so we're not going to get to every single one, but we'll get to a number of them. And Team Long Beach, you are welcome to chime in to share other thoughts on any ones we don't get to. So the first question we're going to start off with is from Kelly. Since water is an issue in California, are residents given guidance on more sustainable options for more optimal tree types for your climate and environment? It's a heavy question, so I'll say it one more time to give folks a chance to think. Since water is an issue in California, are residents given guidance on more sustainable options for more optimal tree types for your climate and environment? I will open it up to Long Beach.
Hi, can you hear us? So the Long Beach team is all together in a room. I don't know if you're seeing our video. We're not seeing it at the moment, but I'm Larry Rich, the sustainability coordinator for the city of Long Beach, and I'm joined by some of the folks you saw in the video, Vanessa, Tony, and Hilda. We were a little distracted with making sure we were unmutable. Was the question about tree selection? Yeah, okay. So our city street tree list, diversity is important in the selection of trees and in the urban forest. So there are about 120 trees that have been determined to be suitable in Long Beach to the climate and providing a lot of different benefits. But from within that list, one of our tools involves allowing people to select based on being a California native and drought tolerance and air pollution mitigation benefits. So we do have that ability for people to be selective and select appropriate trees. But when it comes to watering, there's no avoiding watering trees. That's what they need to do to grow. And so one important fun fact about tree watering is to water a tree, a newly planted tree, because trees only need to be actively watered in their first couple of years after planting to make sure that they're established. And that cost of that water is less than $10 a year. So planting a new tree and watering it does not break your water budget. It's the sum total of all the other landscape watering that goes on that creates potentially expensive water. And in our opinion, trees are the single most important bit of landscape for water. So I hope that answers.
Wow, that was fantastic. And I feel like I just learned so much too about trees and how to keep them healthy in my community. So thank you for that. I'm going to go to our second question from Kira, which is, have you thought about adding images to the map or other kinds of assistive tools for non-English speakers?
We talked about that originally in our MVP, potentially adding so people can upload trees, like specifically if they want to just add them. I think it's definitely something that we can do in the future. I think there's sort of a governance thing around that of how do we regulate it, make sure people are posting pictures of trees and not other things. So I definitely think it's something that we can do. And there is a functionality where you can go and click on a tree and upload an image in the Google form itself. And so that's definitely something we could do.
That's awesome. And then our final question, I'm combining two questions from the chat, one of which may have already been answered, but I think it's important just to emphasize again. So the first question, or the first part of the question is this tool available to the public? And then the second part is, I love this. How do I replicate it in my community?
Yes, the link is available. I posted it in the chat. We're working on getting the official URL, but currently that link will work for the map. And it'll be the one that the non-clustering version until we get that merged properly. So that's the first part. Second part is I kind of expected this. I think a lot of areas don't have a really good tree map. And so I imagine this is something that once we get the sort of infrastructure in place for it, it should be relatively plug and play for other communities, as long as you have a data set that you can apply to it. And so we can add that to our list of things to look at for the future of making it so, other communities across the world really could implement it.
Anything the group wants to add? I see y'all there. I want to make sure I'm not talking over any of you if you want to add anything there.
No, we're okay.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Team Long Beach, and really excited to see what happens here. As a reminder, the program, all of the tools we're creating in our program are open source, so that code for how do you create this tool and can replicate it in your own community will be available online as well. So just wanted to emphasize that piece. Now with that, we're actually going to move from the cities in our program to the counties in our program. We are going to start off with Macon-Bibb County. Macon-Bibb worked with the Macon-Bibb County Community Enhancement Authority. We're going to hear from Barbara Marlin, Tanja Kabir, and Kai Fan about their experience and project. Welcome, y'all.
Thank you, Kate. Welcome to our demo day presentation for Macon-Bibb County. I would first like to thank the Center for Public Impact, the Beck Center, Google.org, the Knight Foundation, and the Community Enhancement Authority for their support and encouragement throughout this process. What is blight? Mayor Lester Miller has made great strides working to improve the quality of life in Macon through his Clean Streets Matter and Blight Fight initiatives. Blight in particular is a complicated issue, and defining blight and communicating the definition of blight to residents is a difficult task, which is why we are including educational materials and future videos to help bridge this gap. A property is considered blighted if it is uninhabitable, unsafe, or abandoned, lacks adequate ventilation, light, air, stormwater, or sanitation, poses an imminent threat to other property, is known to have repeated illegal activity, or if maintenance of the property is below governmental code. Fighting blight has presented the county with many challenges, but we are pleased that the process of developing this application was largely driven by the residents. Based on extensive user feedback and interaction, approximately 120 residents and community partners participated through town hall meetings and open streets events and surveys. We were excited to create an application to report, track, and enable residents to take action to prevent and eliminate blight. The impacts of blight on residents were and are profound. Residents noted decreased mental and physical health, were deeply concerned with public safety issues, and were financially compromised due to decreased property values and less communal and individual wealth. We chose Pleasant Hill as our study area, partially due to the amount of blight in the neighborhood, but also for the opportunity to work with Community Enhancement Authority, our community partner on this project, who does a fantastic job in the community and has such a close relationship with the residents that made our user feedback process very productive. I'm going to now pass to Tanja Kabir with the Community Enhancement Authority to introduce you to the Pleasant Hill neighborhood.
Hey everybody, my name is Tanja Kabir and I'm a nonprofit consultant in Macon-Bibb, but I'm also a resident of Pleasant Hill. And so I'm working with the CEA to mobilize and engage other residents about this project. So let's first talk about Pleasant Hill. It's a historic neighborhood founded in 1879 with much of the housing stock being built between then and the 1920s. In the 1960s, of course, we had Interstate 75, which was built directly through the neighborhood. As a result, we then began to see large-scale disinvestment into the neighborhood, and it left us with an annual median income of $17,000, vacancy rate or blight rate of 27%, as well as an average home value of less than $20,000. Next slide, please. So this map here shows the concentration of blight in Pleasant Hill. We see that there are currently 95 identified blighted properties in the neighborhood. There are 6,000 identified blighted properties across the city. Since January 2021, over 300 structures have been demolished. While that fact may seem like an accomplishment, we heard from residents that because of the historic nature of the neighborhood, many would rather see other uses for blighted properties, especially considering the need for affordable housing and cultural preservation. Next slide. So here is our friend, Miss Amanda. She is a lifelong resident of Pleasant Hill. She worked at the local elementary school for close to 30 years, and she takes care of her elderly mom and leads the annual Pleasant Hill Neighborhood Reunion. Also, her green beans are world class. She has been complaining about this house across the street from her for ages. She shared it has a huge infestation problem, but I think the cats are eating the rodents, so at least that is a resolution. So Miss Amanda is locked into the Pleasant Hill community, but still has this issue with getting blight resolved. Next slide. So here we can see some examples of blight throughout the neighborhood. We can see overgrown lots that occur after demolition. We see abandoned and vacant homes, new homes right next door to blighted houses, and even cases of trash and illegal dumping, which often tends to happen near blighted parcels as well. Next slide. In order to further understand the challenge, we held several different listening sessions. We had 3 community sessions, which happen at our regularly scheduled monthly neighborhood meetings, as well as an additional blight town hall, which specifically addressed this issue of blight in the neighborhood. We also held an online survey, which gained 43 resident and community responses. And then finally, we had a user feedback session at an outdoor open streets event with Bike Walk Macon in the neighborhood. So those results helped us to uncover our solution. And now, Kai, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tanja. Next slide, please. So based on the residents' concerns, the solution we are trying to provide is a blight reporting tool by utilizing the ArcGIS solution to help residents engage in the process of reporting blight. It contains features such as identifying the site of a blighted property, reporting it to making the code enforcement, and of course, providing a case number tracking the process in the future. This tool is mobile friendly, and the public can access it through different devices. Today, we are only demonstrating it from the desktop version. Next slide, please. So we have created a landing page regarding the blight issue. This educational page has all of the information regarding the blighted property, such as what's the blight, how to address blight, how to prevent the property from being blighted. We also provide access to the blight reporting tool from this page. Next slide, please. So here's the home page of our reporting tool. It has 3 main parts: a map that displays all the reported blighted properties, a blighted property list, and a button to report a blighted property. Next slide, please. After clicking the submit a report button, here's the interface for entering all the blight information. Next slide, please. So first, you can manually type the address of the blighted property. The system will automatically provide an address list based on the keywords. Next slide, please. Or you can drop a mark on the map if you don't know the exact address. Then once you click the blighted location on the map, the system will automatically populate the address for you. Next slide, please. The next step is to fill in the details about the blighted property. Also, you can attach images from your device to help the code enforcement department to verify this blighted property. And the email field is optional if you need to get updates by email later. After entering all the information, you can just simply hit the reported button to submit your report. Next slide, please. Once your report is successfully submitted, you will see a confirmation. Thank you, your report has been submitted. Next slide, please. So back to the home page, your report will be successfully listed on our tool. At the same time, the new marker is displayed on the map. You can view the details about the blighted property by selecting the report or clicking the marker on the map. Next slide, please. Everything about this blighted property can be found on the detail panel, including addresses, submit a date, status, or a resolution. Since we also created a console for the code enforcement department to manage the report, the status or a resolution will be updated by the officer from the code enforcement department. Now I'm passed to Barbara. Thank you very much.
Following a human-centered design approach allowed us to focus not only on our county departments as end users, but our residents as end users as well. This will become practice in our division as we move forward with further design on this application and others in the future. We also learned the importance of user feedback, allowing us to meet the needs as gleaned through interaction with residents and county departments during user testing. The implementation of this design process allows us to be proactive instead of reactive by understanding some of the pitfalls of the design from user engagement and departmental involvement during the design process. Next slide. As you have seen with Kai's demonstration, next slide, please. Sorry, go back. As you have seen with Kai's demonstration, the current features availability is a more accurate location-based information gathering regarding the blighted property, along with the address, which is always not known. The application pulls the address from the map if you click on a property to report it. We offer multiple report enhancements that include uploading images of the property, reporting multiple violations or types of blight in a single submittal, email notification, and one of the most requested features is the status of the blighted property as it goes through the many stages to remediate the property. The application is accessible with mobile, tablet, or desktop environments. And in the future, we would like to integrate our current Tyler Technologies data that is in use with code enforcement, some educational video YouTube presence about blight prevention and remediation, a blight hotline for residents that lack the technological means to access the application, and dashboard development utilizing GIS technology for mapping blight for county leaders, taking advantage of the data integration with code enforcement. Learned issues from the residents and county departments will continue to drive development and shape the future of this application. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time and interest. I would like to thank the entire team for their efforts in bringing this application to fruition. A special thanks to my internal team, Kai Fan and Mohammed Islam, and for the support of our CIO, Reginald Brown, and our executive champion, Dr. Keith Moffitt. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you so much, Team Macon-Bibb. We're going to go into Q&A now. The first question that I received was some communities use SeeClickFix as a tool to manage blight. So how is this tool different from a platform like SeeClickFix?
SeeClickFix is a tool that's good at reporting and for citizen engagement, but it doesn't track the blighted property through the whole process. And that was something that we had really, the status of those properties, once a code enforcement officer goes out to the community or to the blighted property and puts a warning on it, that closes the C-click fix ticket. So we needed a way to track beyond just the warnings and what was being issued as code violations and be able to track the entire life cycle of a blighted property.
Great, that's super helpful. And I know a lot of communities throughout the country are dealing with blight, so I'm sure they're excited to learn from what you guys have done here. Another question that came up was around data. So what is some of the information that is now publicly available that might have been harder to find before or wasn't available previously?
Some of the data that's been harder to find is we have locations of these blighted properties. We were tracking them in an Excel spreadsheet. So it was hard to get that information converted to a map or to an actionable location outside of code enforcement. And community leaders and county leaders want to know the status of these properties and how these are being handled. So that was been a challenge in getting that data. And it will be a challenge to integrate it with our current code enforcement software as well, but we're up to the task.
I'm sure you are. I've had the pleasure of working more closely with Macon throughout the sprint, so they are an amazing team and I'm certain they'll do that. Another question was, what was the key or most surprising insight you gained from your work in developing your solution? And I welcome anybody to respond to this one. We could take a couple of responses as well from the team about this. So the key or most surprising insight you gained from your work to develop this solution.
Tanja, do you want to start on this one?
Yes, we did a lot of chatting with different residents, and we learned that historical piece of blight. So thinking about like how we had this idea of let's demolish the property to make that as a resolution, a lot of residents didn't seem to want that. And so trying to find a resource to ensure that not only can we get people through the blighted process, but connect it to other action pieces, like what can we do with the property afterwards, was something that was really on the minds of the residents that it was an insight for me.
That's great.
I think that the most surprising thing for me was the alignment of what our goals are and what the residents' goals are in a lot of situations. We want resolution to the blight. Residents want a resolution to the blight. We want to make it easier for them to, and for code enforcement to respond and have better information, and they want to give better information. So that alignment of values around the issue, I think, was what surprised me the most.
That's fantastic. Any other insights folks want to share around that question? We have one final question that I'll take, and then we're going to move to our next presentation. What is the next step after blight is identified?
It will go through the code enforcement process to be inspected, and if warnings need to be issued, warnings will be issued. But code enforcement is really great at working with residents to help alleviate whatever issues they have. And a lot of people don't know that that's a resource for them to, if they get a letter or a warning, they don't know to call and talk to someone at code enforcement. So this educational piece, I think, is really going to be beneficial for those residents.
I love that piece around helping government to be more responsive to residents and meet them where they are. That's fantastic. So with that, we're going to move on to our final demo for today. Last but certainly not least, we have our team Miami-Dade County. During the sprint, they partnered with the Urban Impact Lab. Today, we will have Shireen Floyd, Ariane Oliva, and Alexina Prather, who are telling us more about the great work that they have been doing. Welcome, Miami.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we get started, we actually want to start with a message from our mayor, if you will.
opportunity project participants and valued community members. I am your County Mayor, Daniela Levine Cava. Demo Day brings together values that are close to my heart and addresses key priorities of my administration: engagement, equity, and economic development. The launch of this tool supports commitments made in Thrive 305, a countywide community engagement effort that surveyed our residents on their concerns and informed my priorities as mayor. We pledged to assist small businesses with navigating bureaucracy by providing training and clear information on business licensing and permitting and streamlining regulatory processes. Action item 5.4. This work also complements Strive 305, our program designed to accelerate the growth of small businesses countywide and support budding entrepreneurs as they launch and grow new businesses. It's grounded in collaboration by bringing together key partners within our organization and externally. Miami-Dade County recognizes the urgent need to modernize its services to business. So we are thrilled to showcase our latest innovation to simplify permitting and licensing processes so that businesses can easily open and comply with necessary regulations. I know our county team and our valued partners at Urban Impact Lab have been working hard on this. And with its launch, so many businesses, lives, and livelihoods across our county will benefit. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I actually think it's really fitting that this week we're celebrating her second year in office as we unveil what we believe is really a model project for her administration. And it's actually National Entrepreneurs Day, so that makes this even more fun. So we first want to talk about our partners in our team. So as the mayor made clear, we value collaboration. And when it comes to human-centered design and our desired impact that we want to make, we knew we had to pick a service that spanned multiple departments. And we needed a cross-functional team that could properly represent the scale of our service focus. So our county has nearly 3 million residents. That includes 34 cities and an unincorporated area of 1 million. And we have 29,000 employees that serve this county. So in addition to our 4 partners you see here, our county team includes 15 team members from 4 different departments, addressing process that involves fire, water, sewer, environmental resources, finance, regulations, and other cities. So with that, we're gonna introduce our problem statement. So next slide. So the process we're speaking of, well, that's my name, Shireen Floyd. So in the next slide, we'll introduce our problem statement that speaks of our business licensing and permitting. So we know that it can be a complicated process. This is particularly true for small and micro businesses, which make up about 80% of the businesses in the county. And so business owners don't often know where to start or have it navigate processes in the county or within the city that they live. So next slide. So entrepreneurship on its own is, we know it's costly, we know there's typically delays, and it's complicated. At the county, we want to do a better job facilitating this experience when it comes to processes that we own, like business, like the application process for business licensing and permitting. So in 2021, we issued nearly 6,000 business licenses for just around use, not the structure, but just around whether they could practice that use in their zoned area. And so we want to elevate just one of those stories in Alexander Nunez on our next slide here. So Alexander Nunez is what we think is a quintessential Miami story. He runs a minority-owned, immigrant-owned business. He spoke to us a little bit about his challenges in navigating multiple jurisdictions and a learning curve for him and his fellow entrepreneurial friends. And actually the urgency around figuring it out because he needed to qualify for capital available to him. So it's stories like this that made it really real for us and represents kind of the hustle and the heart of our business community. and more importantly, served as a reminder to us of the impact we can have when we take an intentional, human-centered approach. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Alexina Prather for a little bit of our research.
Great, thank you so much, Shireen. So I'm Alexina. I'm the director of Access Helps, which is a project under Urban Impact Lab. And we provide resources and help close the information gap for Miami-Dade County small business owners. So I'll be sharing some information about our user research process and how we really ensured that the voice of our small business owners was present in all of our decision making. But before that, I want to tell you a little bit more about who our business owners are. So if you could go to the next slide. So as Shireen mentioned, there's an estimated 80,000 businesses in the county, and 80% of those are small or micro businesses. Typically, we define this as having less than 5 million in revenue or under 20 employees. But if you look at these two charts, you'll see that our small businesses here are actually quite smaller than that. Typically, they have under $1 million in revenue. A vast majority of them are under the $1 million threshold, and they fall within the 1 to 4 range of employees. So these businesses are often family run, minority owned. Language can be a barrier for them. There's a lot of other challenges and hurdles that they often face because of their scale and their size. Next slide, please. So in order to inform our decision-making process and the tool which you'll hear about shortly, we held quite a number of conversations with our small business owners. So we were able to speak with 20 businesses directly in one-on-one interviews where we either hosted these on Zoom or went to the businesses directly to have those conversations to learn about their experience with license and permits and the process at the county. We spoke with 3 organizations that directly support a number of small businesses across the county. So we were able to learn more about their clients and their experience serving them through this work. And then we sent out an additional survey to collect some more data points. And all of these conversations, all of this wonderful information was able to lead to more than 100 insights to inform the eventual process. Next slide. And just to recap some of the major takeaways that we heard, a lot was around prior to actually applying for a license or permit. There's a lot of gaps in information that business owners don't have. So the why is not clear to them of why it's always necessary to have these documentations. The need for applying often came once it was required for them to submit. So they would typically wait until it was requested for funding opportunities or if they were potentially fined for not having one of these. And then we heard that there was a lot of difficulty in navigating the difference between the county requirements, the municipal requirements. Shireen mentioned we have over 34 cities. So there's a lot of different channels and pathways to get this information. So it's typically very hard to navigate. And the last 2 are just that SunBiz, which is the state registration, is typically an obvious first step or a recommended first step for most of our businesses, but then the transition to the other levels of government is typically lost. And we've really had a lot of interesting conversations with either home-based businesses or virtual businesses that have shifted their process because of COVID-19, because of the way that businesses are changing. And it's not always clear what is required of them versus a typical brick and mortar restaurant that might have those standards in place. So that is just a little recap on the user testing that we were able to do, and I'm going to pass it to Ariane.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ariane Oliva, and I am the business architect at Miami-Dade's Department of Regulatory and Economic Resources. Next slide. So we've talked a little bit about the problem, and now we'll be discussing a bit about the solution that we've come up with to address the takeaways discovered through the impact from the businesses. So we've heard loud and clear from our key audience that business owners need more information, that they want to know why permits and licenses are required, but more importantly, how to navigate this process that seems very intricate. So with so many things to tackle and improve, we honed in specifically to the problem we wanted to address, which was how to provide more information regarding what you need to open up your business as early as possible, not necessarily when you are desperate to open up your business and absolutely ready to jump the gun. So as early as possible, maybe when you're potentially looking for a location or maybe securing your lease. So as Alexina described, we had engagement opportunities with small businesses, but we almost failed to realize that we as government and the implementers of this tool is also a customer in this process. So in order for this tool to have longevity and permanence in our community, it has to be a sustainable tool that our department can continually evolve and update as legislation and operational procedures inevitably change. So all of this wonderful and intentional thought has led us to this solution, and we're looking to implement an online step-by-step guided walkthrough site with questions and answers that are pertinent and specific to your business type that you are interested in opening. And it will provide to you information, recommendations, or requirements that are specific to your situation, right? So this information will be presented in a walkthrough format, and it's going to reference other government agencies and other applicable municipal entities that are also stakeholders in the process. And at the end of this walkthrough, the citizen will be able to either print or email themselves a comprehensive summary of all of this information that they've received in order to assist them in navigating all of their requirements. So we're looking to provide all of this information in languages that support our community demographics. So the tool will be able to provide this information in English, Spanish, and Creole. Next slide. And so what's next, right? We got to demo day and we're looking to implement an MVP with a limited set of business types and release it into a product incubator that would allow us to continue engagement with business owners and gather feedback regarding how useful the tool is, right? So during this time, we will continue to take a deep dive into the user experience, and our plans are also to continue scaling the tool to add the remaining business types, because there is so much diversity and so many different types of businesses that make up our 305. And we want to also make sure that we engage our 35 local municipalities in order to create a truly comprehensive hub for information. Next slide. So if you give me a moment, I can give you a very quick demonstration of the tool. It's a little bit abbreviated in the interest of time. Can you, yes, thank you. So of what this is looks like. Are you guys still with me? That it's crashing. And essentially what it's going to be a series of questions on a small screen. It's going to ask you what type of businesses you are starting. Right now, we're starting with 3 different types of businesses. It'll ask you if your business has been established in the state of Florida. It's going to ask you if you collected any workers' compensation information, if you're collecting taxes. You'll answer yes or no to a long series of questions. And we have a specific area of the tool that's going to ask you if you've selected the location of your business. And when you do, you can type in the address of that location and it'll hone in on a specific map. And this part of the process is going to give you pertinent geospatial information regarding your site, right? So it's going to tell you what the zoning of that particular property is, and that's very important for establishing use. It's going to tell you, super importantly, in what jurisdictional municipality you are in, because we found through a lot of our feedback that people had a hard time understanding in what city boundaries they were in and what requirements were specific to those boundaries, right? It's going to also tell you about the utilities available nearby and who the service provider is so that you can start engaging those service providers, as well as any areas of environmental concerns, such as brownfields, wellfield protection areas, or protected natural areas that have very special requirements and criteria regarding the types of businesses that you can open up around those places. We also have an area that is specific to, your jurisdictional location. So if you are in unincorporated Dade County, you will receive a set of questions that is specific to your location, asking you about construction, contractors, your certificate of use. If your area happens to be within the boundaries of a municipality, it will tailor those questions to those requirements, and it will guide you to the municipal entity that has jurisdiction. And as you continue through the process, at the very end, you will receive a confirmation that we've received all of your information, and you will be able to either print your summary of recommendations on the spot, or you will be able to email yourself the summary directly to your inbox, which would look something like this. You will receive an email from Miami-Dade County thanking you for using our tool, and with the attached business assistance guidance summary, which will look something like this, where you'll have sections that you can check off with all of the requirements, and it'll have a list of websites for you to read, and contact information. Specifically, my department offers special services to small businesses, so we want to make sure that we include that confirmation, that contact information there as well. So with this tool, we really hope to unravel this process and make opening up a business in Miami-Dade County as accessible and pain-free as possible. This is really going to help my department drive our small business assistance services and allow us to be more open to contributions from several municipalities and other agencies in Miami-Dade County that make up what it is to be in Miami-Dade. I appreciate the opportunity to present this to all of you, and the opportunity to work with such an amazing team. And I'll open up the floor to questions now.
That's great. Well, amazing work, Team Miami-Dade. So exciting to see what you guys have accomplished during this time. We have a lot of questions coming in, so I'm doing my best to sort through them quickly. The first one I'm going to do is, how are the survey results exported for reporting? And what tools will you be using to compile and visualize the resulting data for reporting? I can say it again if you need me to.
Well, at least the first one.
For sure. So how are survey results exported for reporting? And then what tools, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're using Esri's Survey 123. So we can export all of this information. More than likely, it'll be used for our departments in order to provide additional services and to contact these potential small businesses. We'd like to know, we'd like to probably report on what types of small businesses are interested in opening up in certain areas. And that kind of gives us a little bit of guidance as to where our county and our economy is kind of leading things into what areas within our city. I think I got it all.
Great, just finding the unmute button. And then the second part of that question was around what, how will you visualize the resulting data for reporting?
I can share that. So I do want to underscore that initially, as we're in the product incubator mode, so it'll be available to the public. We'll just have it kind of branded as beta, just to let folks know we're still learning and improving the tool. So throughout the incubator, it will be available to the public. And initially, those analytics will inform how we improve the tool and how we improve and what tweaks we might want to make before we call it done for now. But we also have a super robust open data site, and I totally see a scenario where we just make the results open so people can look at what our business owners are searching for and draw their own conclusions.
That's great. And I will say that's true across all the products. All the products are minimum viable products, so they're still in development. They'll still be iterating and growing and improving, which is a key part of this program. Another question we received was around user research. So did you guys use any established guidelines around how you should incentivize or compensate community and residents for their time as they participated in these efforts?
I can speak to that. So Urban Impact Lab has done a whole series of user testing for other projects and other programs. So we implemented similar policies that we use across the board. I'm happy to chat with whoever asked that question to talk a little bit more about what they're doing. I see they're looking to establish some of those guidelines. So these business owners were compensated for their time and for the interviews, and were informed beforehand what that would be so that they could, gauge their time appropriately. We know they're incredibly busy and we really value their time and their input. So that was information that was provided upfront to all of the users that we tested.
That's great. Anything, Shireen, Ariane, you want to add there? Otherwise, I'm happy to go to the next question. Nope. All right. And then another question was around how long will the app be in incubation?
Just a few months. We want to keep this momentum. Working with, another part. You all will be, our partners will be around for the incubation, but we want to keep the momentum of the project and what we learned from it. And so we envision through March, but we also are still refining our sustainability plan. So probably just a few months.
That's great. Well, we'll definitely be paying close attention in the spring of 2023 to learn more here. I'm going to ask one final question here. So it seems like this tool is very versatile and it could be applied to a number of problems outside of business permitting as well. Do you have any plans to use this tool for other problems, or is that something you started to think about? Zero pressure. Well, I can't say I'm saying zero pressure. The asker, I don't know if they feel zero pressure.
If we come across a problem statement that that matches, yeah, why not? I think that was part of the lure for us to do this. And so yeah, but problem statement first, and then the technology follows, right?
For sure. Definitely wanting to make sure we focus on the problem and resident needs first. All right, so for sake of time, I am going to have us continue going, but thank you so much to Miami-Dade County. I also just want to say to all of the teams who presented today, these have been such incredible presentations. Congratulations on a job well done and throughout the program. I hope y'all are taking a moment to take a deep breath for all the hard work that you've put in, give yourself a pat on the back, have a glass of wine or whatever you like to consume to celebrate all of the hard work that's been happening here. Audience, please feel free to shout out folks in the chat, or I see the emojis going crazy as well. So it's great to see the love happening here. Before we move into our next steps and conclusion, I do want to invite Lillian Correll, the Director of National Strategy and Technology Innovation at the Knight Foundation, to share a few reflections from today. Welcome, Lillian.
Thank you, Kate. Hi, everybody. I am so excited and actually really energized after the last hour, almost 2 hours of presentations. I'll start just by saying a little bit about Knight Foundation, and then maybe just a quick set of remarks around why we're so excited by the work that the Center for Public Impact and everybody who's presented is doing. So first, Knight Foundation's mission is to foster more informed and engaged communities. It's an organization that is rooted in a legacy of newspapers, right? Making sure that critical to democracy that we have that engaged citizenry. And as we see the growth of digital technology, we've developed this portfolio that is really about harnessing all of that, the data the technical tools that you've seen today to make sure that our communities are more informed and they are more engaged. And we couldn't ask for more, just greater projects that really highlight the value of that. And there's a couple of things that we just sort of want to point out. I mean, part of what we're hoping that this kind of work does is, one, that it doesn't end here. Obviously, Knight Foundation is invest in 26 cities across the U.S. and in particular within the Smart Cities portfolio. We've honed in on four communities, while the portfolio focuses on Miami, San Jose, Charlotte, and Philadelphia, we invest in projects like these that actually cut across other communities like Long Beach and Macon-Bibb County. So we're continuing to invest in this effort. And part of what we're trying to learn is exactly what is it that makes these kinds of collaborations stick within government, when we know that it is so hard to oftentimes get the executive sponsorship, get the traction, work with community, bring in the technologists, build the solutions, and then actually try to sustain them. And so what you see today in these presentations are really the results of 22 weeks of work. And hopefully what we want to see is as we continue to do this in these four communities, these projects, and then in future years, more and more of these projects, how do we create a set of solutions and a more sustained culture for developing these kinds of digital solutions, just broadly. We continue to support this effort and find that the roots in the belief that early learning from a lot of these pilots and this experimentation is what's going to feed the continuous improvement loop in the delivery of city services. And no one better than Raylene early on to really talk about that. And the kind of demonstration projects we've seen today are impactful and sustainable because they engage residents. That was also so very exciting for me, that community component, that we're not just sitting here working with government to define problems and solutions on our own, but that we're actually engaging residents in that process and that they can own these solutions and frankly tell us what the answers are as much as anybody in government, that it really has to be co-created. The robust, diverse, and inclusive ecosystem that delivers these kind of solutions was a full display here. And I think for me, one of the things I leave with is just sustainability. How do we continue to make sure that these are not one-off projects? A lot of the questions really touch that, and a lot of the presenters really spoke about it. And we're going to pay attention at Knight for how do we help support these projects and these agencies to make sure that these are not just one-off solutions. And as many of you may know, we have long-standing partnerships in these cities, so we know that sustainability will definitely continue to be top of mind. Again, I will just say that we're excited about this milestone. This is the first set of demonstrations in a 3-year investment that we're doing with the Center for Public Impact. So there's more to come. Congratulations to everybody for all of the hard work. A huge amount of thank you and gratitude to Google.org, to the Beck Center, to the CPI team. Very excited and very energized about what the future holds.
Great. Thank you so much, Lillian. And we're just so grateful to be able to partner with you in all of this work. And so for anyone who is interested in getting in contact with the teams who presented today, I'm going to share a list of points of contact on the next slide. So whether you are interested in trying to adapt their tools to your context, or you just want to hear more about their tools in general, these email addresses are a great place to start. We have emails for Oscar, Larry, Barbara, and Shireen. So across each community that participated in the program. Similarly, if you do have any questions for the Beck Center or CPI, and you're interested in future offerings, please reach out to the email at the bottom of the page. That's topc@centerforpublicimpact.org, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. I do want to quickly preview what's to come in the next few months. We will be releasing both a toolkit for cities and counties that they can use to run their own sprints, regardless of whether or not CPI and the Beck Center are present. We will also be releasing a report on the 2022 cohort that shares case studies and lessons that we learned during the sprint. Please be on the lookout for each of these items in the spring of 2023. And so with that, That brings us to the end of the 2022 Opportunity Project for Cities Demo Day. I want to once more thank all of our incredible partners at the Knight Foundation, at google.org, for each of our cities and communities who participated in the program. You all brought such energy and passion to this work and created such powerful good in these communities. And then lastly, thank you to all of our audience members for choosing to join us this afternoon. We look forward to being in touch, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Thanks all.